Happy Friday, everybody. It's Jim, it's Amadeus, and Amadeus, we've come to the end of the rope here for the Final Fours. We got one tonight, and we got one again tomorrow night. Tonight starts at 7 o'clock on ESPN. That's 7 o'clock on Eastern Time. And then we got the back end of that doubleheader, probably closer to 9:45. So let's start off. We got South Carolina taking on NC State in the first game tonight in the women's bracket of the NCAA.
Yeah, and I think it's safe to say we have 4 straight days of championship basketball here,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a little funny just because there's a UConn and an NC State
Right.
in both Final Fours. So what are
Yep.
the odds of that, right? But
Right.
and you get this similar situation where the women's NC State is an 11.5 point favorite against
Mm-hmm.
South Carolina here, and obviously on the men's side, NC State is a close to about a 9.5, 8.5 point dog against
Mm-hmm.
Purdue, depending where you get the line. But yeah, this is. I mean, we always talk about how South Carolina with the women, that's the team to beat. But I think we definitely have some solid teams. I don't know how much of a fight NC State in particular is going to put up against South Carolina. I kind of see them going through to the finals here, but I think the other game can definitely be an interesting one. I could see it going either way, and I think South Carolina is going to be somebody versus South Carolina for sure in this finals.
It's funny because South Carolina's 36-0. They're 2 wins away from a perfect season, and it's not like they haven't done this before. They've been there. Offensively, South Carolina ranks third in points per game with 85.6. That's a lot of points in the women's game. And they're tied for 11th in assists, which is 18.6 is what they're averaging. Defensively, they're 17th overall, allowing the fewest points per game with 56. And so basically, they kind of mowed through the Southeastern Conference. And oh, by the way, in that Southeastern Conference was LSU, the defending champion.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny because on the men's side we have a UConn in the women's side, but the
Mm-hmm.
South Carolina is kind of the UConn of the women.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that one of the things that's going to be interesting too is South Carolina. I mean, how can South Carolina? By the way, this is all going to be done in Cleveland, so they're playing in Cleveland, and this whole situation with South Carolina. If you're South Carolina, aren't you a little pissed off that you're not getting any recognition here in the Final Four?
Yeah, definitely it has to be playing into the chip on their shoulder kind of thing because
Mm-hmm.
that's a great example. You got this undefeated team has a chance to do this magical undefeated run, and
Mm-hmm.
everybody's just talking about UConn, Iowa, Caitlin Clark,
Right.
Paige Bukers. So we know one of them's probably going to have to face South Carolina in
Right.
the end, but. Yeah, it's gonna be a very exciting finals here because as you put it, no one's really taught. South Carolina is definitely not the story, despite being the best and the undefeated team.
Well, the funny thing is, you mentioned North Carolina State, right? And North Carolina State in both Final Fours are are basically the Cinderella story. The thing with North Carolina State and against South Carolina, normally if the story would be dominant South Carolina facing Cinderella North Carolina State. This whole thing that we just talked about, where the chip on South Carolina's shoulder, basically, while they may enter the game as favorites under normal circumstances, you think, well, geez, maybe North Carolina State can sneak in there and knock them off. And I don't think, as I said before, and you reiterated, being the Cinderella in this particular case is you're very likely to have that glass slipper smashed.
Yeah, and I think that's what we're going to see. Obviously, I said South Carolina is minus 11 and a half. And if I'm going to bet on this game, I would lay the points with South Carolina. And there's actually been a few instances, at least in the men's tournament, where
Hmm.
11 and a half point favorite has covered. UConn was 11 and a half point favorite against San Diego State
Right.
a few back. And Purdue was another 11 and a half point favorite against Utah State back in that game. They won that by 40 points. So, South Carolina has the potential to win by 40 points here. And that 11 and a half line just makes me think, you hammer the Gamecocks here.
Hmm. Well, that's the 7 o'clock game. Now, as we used to say in boxing, that is the preliminary. the, the main event is Iowa versus UConn, and it's Caitlin Clark and Paige Buchers. And the funny thing is, they both came in the same time, and Paige Buchers was the number one recruit that everybody and their grandmother was trying to get a hold of, and Caitlin Clark was kind of way under the radar.
Yeah, and I believe you even mentioned it on a previous show about how Caitlin Clark wasn't even recruited by
Right,
UConn, and I ended up seeing the I saw it on TV where she was talking about how UConn was her dream team. She would
right.
have loved to play for them, but she didn't even get an offer. Never mind. Like
Gino didn't pick up the phone.
yeah, and as you said, Gino's already came out and said he's kicking himself for
Right.
that one. So yeah, we got.
Can you imagine what a team with Paige Bucher and and Caitlin Clark would have been like?
Oh yeah, they might be the South Carolina.
Right. Oh man. So UConn, and the reason Paige Bucher hasn't gotten a lot of press is because she's been banged up over her college career. But in her last 7 games, something for us to ponder. In her last 7 games, only LeBron James has matched the numbers in points scored, rebounds, and assists.
Yeah, definitely some phenomenal things going on, and that's why the game is growing, right? We
Hmm.
see it. We see the women's game growing, and it brings a ton of excitement to the game. So, like I said, I sat down, I watched that Iowa LSU game start to finish, and I'm
Hmm.
probably going to be watching UConn Iowa tonight. We'll see if we watch that first game, just because like I already know it's going to be a slaughter. Do I really need to see that? Yeah, it has nothing to do with not wanting to watch South Carolina play. I know they can ball. Do I
Right.
need to see them win by 40 tonight? I don't know. I'll definitely be watching on Sunday when they're in the national championship against either UConn or Iowa. But yeah, this is going to be a very fun game. In case the audience is wondering, 3.5 point favorite Iowa is in this game. I believe they opened it's closer to 2, and now it's around 3.5 point favorite. So
Or basically one Paige Bucher, 3-point shot from 45 feet away. It's amazing. 3.5 people percent. I'm sorry, 3.5% of the folks filling out brackets for the women's Final Four tournament had UConn in the Final Four.
only 3.5.
So that gives you an idea. Well, when they started the season, they were banged up pretty badly.
That's true, but here they are. They're back. They're healthy,
Well, they're healthy.
and
Yeah, you're right.
that's the big thing, right? I think I mentioned. I watched that game that
Hmm.
Paige Buchers got injured in a while ago. And I always hate it
Right.
because you can always tell when you watch enough sports
Hmm.
the severity of the injury when it happens.
Yeah.
And right away, I knew I was like, she's going to be out next season for sure. But here we are now, the return, and we got a very good game tonight for sure.
Yeah. And here's the thing with what works well with both of these young women. they not only are very good at taking the ball when they need to get that point, right? When things are when you can feel that the momentum is going, in the other direction, and taking it down and taking over a game. But at the same time, both of these young women are very good at setting up their other teammates.
Yeah, definitely. We saw specifically in the LSU Iowa game. We saw Caitlin Clark. She can hit the
Hmm.
three, she can drive the basket, but yeah, she's got hands. She can get those assists, get the ball to the open players. I forget what her name is, but there was another one who was hitting threes stride for stride with her. So
Hmm.
absolutely, 100%. And that's the thing, right? When you play with a player like that, it's we talked about it how it happens in golf, right? You make
Yeah.
the players around you better when you play like that, and so it elevates everybody on the court around you, and you end up getting the best effort out of everybody on the court.
Hmm. You make your teammates better. And I think these ladies are most likely going to be 1 and 2 in the WNBA draft. So this is their last chance to for folks to see. And by the way, uh, now again, the Rocket Money Fieldhouse, which is where the Cleveland Cavaliers play in downtown Cleveland. Tickets are going for so much above average that they actually, for the first time, tickets to the women's Final Four are exceeding from a standpoint of being bought on the on the secondary market for twice as much as men's tickets to the men's Final Four, which is of course in Glendale, Arizona. Now, in fairness, the arena in Cleveland holds about 17,000, a little over 17,000. The arena in Glendale holds about 50,000. So just so you know, I mean, I think believe me, I think it's great that so many people want to get into that building and watch that game in, you know, uh, in women's basketball. But just to put in perspective, I thought, okay, I saw that stat this morning. I'm thinking, okay, I get that, but you can still you can you pay 800 $1,000 to get into the Final Four, the men's Final Four. Is it probably you're not going to be able to see as well as you're going to see in Cleveland, that's for sure. But you get in the building, so there's that. I Here's the one thing I do expect from this game, and obviously I want your thoughts on as well. Um, I think it's going to be a high scoring game.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, the way they were hitting threes the other day, I
Oh
mean,
man,
I'd be shocked if it wasn't a high scoring game. They were over 50% from the 3 point range. So
right?
yeah, that was something else. And let me just get the total for you here. The Yukon Iowa, we're looking at is it 160 162 and a half.
Wow,
So yeah, they're expecting a high scoring game too. That's got to be at least 82 to hit the over at least. So
man, that's wild, huh?
yeah, so I mean, what was the score again? LSU, I think it was 85-77 or something like
Yeah.
that.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think UConn's got some better shooting than LSU at least. Obviously, LSU could really play the boards with Angel Reese there, but
Hmm.
I think yeah, we're gonna see more shooting, and if they're on the way they were on in the last round, then absolutely, I think we're gonna see a high scoring game here.
Well, and again, the good news is that we're not talking about. Um, we're talking about a situation where you've got they're playing in buildings that are not domes, so you've got that uh, the shooter's eye situation is much better. So
Yeah, and the other
they'll get
thing,
that.
I think they'll officiate the game in a
Hmm.
way where maybe you lay off the fouls, let them play, and that'll help with the scoring for sure, right? Because it's hard to get
Yep.
into a rhythm when you're calling a foul every 5 seconds and stop and play. I think they officiate in a way because scoring's exciting. Let's be real. We
Sure.
see what the NFL is doing to get defense out of the game completely. Scoring is exciting. Scoring, and especially in this kind of sport that we're trying to grow the women's game more. People want to see scoring when they tune in. They want to
Yep.
see the 3-pointers, like I said last week, where it got to a point where I was wondering, is somebody going to miss a 3-point? Is it going to happen soon, right? So I think they'll officiate it in a way for there to be lots of scoring because it's going to help with the ratings. People want to see. And the other thing is they can't really dunk the ball. So if it's a more defensive game, it doesn't pan out as excitingly, right? Like I remember I totally forgot they couldn't dunk the ball when I was watching that LSU. I think there was a point where LSU stole the ball and she was on a breakaway and I was expecting her to go up and smash it down. And then I realized when she went up for the layup that wasn't able to dunk. So I think definitely if you officiate the game in a way where, you allow them to play a little more physical, let them get into a rhythm, the shooting will be better and the game will be more exciting for it.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's going to be an interesting game, and so we'll see who shows up on Sunday because it's going to be somebody. I agree with you. It's somebody versus South Carolina. Not going to say who the other one is, but right now, don't know. But it's going to be fun. It'll be fun. Meanwhile, South Carolina, speaking of, I'm sorry, NC State, speaking of Cinderellas, they will take on Purdue Saturday on TNT, and stream it on Max. By the way, in case you were wondering, you can watch tonight's stuff on ESPN and ESPN app and stream it on ESPN Plus. For those who need to know that. All right. Okay. So here we go. 7:25 tip on Saturday. First game of 2, NC State and the team that's been the number 1 team in the country, ranked-wise, for most of the season, and that would be the Purdue Boilermakers. Now, North Carolina State, the Wolfpacks, winners of the South region, are going to battle the Boilermakers, the winners of the Midwest region. And it's actually the first national title, Final Four and national title chance that NC State's had since 1983, which we all remember was the year that Jim Valvano led them to a national title. And there's plenty of lovely and wonderful thoughts made from that one. And we'll see how it all boils down. But it's going to be a lot of fun watching these two teams play. When it comes to, NC State, most of what's been going on has been done by their guard play, which is they've got some really outstanding guards, including the most outstanding player in the South region, and that was DJ Holmes, who, put up 20 points while Michael O'Connell had a career high 11 rebounds, and they just dominated a Duke team that they played 3 times, during the course of the season. So the Wolfpack is for real. There's no question about that. They are, yes, a Cinderella. They're a double-digit seed, and we'll see how it goes. But for sure, this is a talented basketball team.
Yeah, so we've talked about how we think with the women's it's going to be South Carolina and somebody else, whoever wins that game. Well, the books have it a little similar on the men's side, but they're just raring for that Purdue-UConn matchup because we got both teams at almost a double-digit favorite here. And, I think NC State has obviously they've played very well to get to this point, and as you mentioned, DJ Horn has been a big part of that. I think both DJs really have been the story for this NC State team. DJ Horn, yes, but also DJ Byrne has been a massive. He's had a massive impact for them on the glass,
True.
and that's why I think this is going to be an interesting game because yeah, he's not as tall as Edie is, but because of his size, he's not going to get pushed around by Edie. So I think NC State has a player. I don't think they need to burn a player on a double team here. I think they have a player that can cover Edie in this game, and maybe bully him around a bit with his size. So like I said, obviously he's not as tall, but I think for sure size wise he can stay in this game and definitely make Edie's life difficult. So I think it's going to be an exciting game for sure, and maybe a little closer than what the books expect.
Well, I think you said it last week, and that is, the Boilermakers are basically on a redemption tour. They got bounced last season, and it's a team that beat a very talented and very athletic Tennessee team to get here, and really they have. I think we all look at Zach Edey and go, okay, he's the guy, but they still do have other players who can score for them and can play. But the thing with Zach Edey is that he's on his way to becoming probably the player of the year in college basketball for the second straight year.
Yeah, definitely, it's shaping up to be that way. So he's been dominant. I mean, that like you mentioned, they've been on the redemption tour all year. This is something we kind of called from the beginning of the season that they weren't going down in the first round, and they've been a dominant team throughout this entire tournament. So definitely, but just the way they struggled with Tennessee last week, like I'm not saying they're going to be at risk of losing this game, but 9 points is a ton, and NC State has given every team they've played trouble, even in the last round against Duke. They were down at halftime. They came out and dominated that second half. So this is sometimes you just got to ride the hot hand, and that's what NC State is here, right? They've been one of the hottest teams. Purdue didn't win their conference tournament, so yes, they've been playing very well, but they're not as hot as NC State, who's won what 9 straight games now.
Yeah, yep. In that Tennessee game, Thaddeus Hill, one of the guys who played center, fouled out with 5 minutes left to go in the game. And he actually had been giving Zach Edey nightmares throughout that entire game. I honestly think, to your earlier point about South Carolina having some beef in the middle, that I'm not downplaying the quality of Zach Edey. I mean, he is a guy who has played phenomenal basketball and is a tremendous talent. But I think if you look at that last game, and I'm certainly sure that North Carolina State has paid a lot of attention to that last game, positioning was the problem. I mean, Tennessee did a very good job of getting down on the blocks in the paint and blocking. And that meant that Edey had to come over top of them to try to get the ball. When you do that, you set up the possibility of fouls, and you can get Zach Edey in foul trouble, which is what Tennessee, almost accomplished, but didn't accomplish as well as they needed to. So we'll see. But yeah, South Carolina definitely, they're going to, I would not be surprised if NC State, South Carolina, NC State, I wouldn't be surprised if NC State, stole this game.
Yeah, like I said, I don't think they're going to win it, but I think it's going to be an exciting, close game for sure. Absolutely. So,
yeah, we'll have to see, but absolutely. It's going to be fun. It's going to be a fun showdown. That's a good preliminary fight, and that brings us to the marquee matchup of the weekend, and that's going to be Alabama taking on UConn. And Alabama's been a juggernaut on offense. I mean, they're just rolling right through, and they've got probably the best two guards in you know in their in college basketball right now. I was just looking real quick at Ken Palm ranks Alabama as the 12th best scoring team in the nation. The Crimson Tide are third in efficiency. However, here's the downside. There's a good side and a bad downside. They're 105th in defensive efficiency. They're ninth in tempo, so we know they play up tempo basketball. They're 11th in free throws, 34th in field goal percentage, 57th in 3-point percentage, which is not that bad. They average 36.9 from three, and they are 26th in the rankings of assists with 16.1 per game. That all sounds very nice, but Connecticut has won 11 straight games, 25 of them out of their last 26. They're 10-1 against the spread in their last 12 games. Basically, in other words, they're the defending national champions, and we have said from jump that they are a dominating force. It's theirs to lose, and I just don't see Alabama. I mean, they could run, but Connecticut can run if they need to. We'll have to see. I mean, senior guard Tristan Newton averages 15 points a game. He's 6.7 rebounds, 6.1 assists. I mean, there's more. This is a very balanced team that can run 9 players.
Yeah, they're definitely a deep team, and we've been on them from the beginning of the season, and they're kind of like they're kind of like the South Carolina here of the
Mm-hmm.
women, and I
Right.
say that in the sense of I could make the case that this team is better than the one last year. Everybody wants to
Mm-hmm.
focus on the 3 players UConn lost to the NBA
Mm-hmm.
this offseason, but nobody wants to talk about the players that were on the bench last year and now thrusted into starting roles. They're playing with chip on their shoulder. They hear the
Mm-hmm.
talk about how UConn's not supposed to be as good this year, all that stuff, and they've came out to they've come out to prove everybody wrong, and that's exactly what they've done. You've mentioned how they've won 11 straight and 25 of their last 26 games. They're what, 34-3 this year,
Yeah.
and a majority, I would say at least 25 plus of their games have been won by double digits. It's ridiculous the tear this team has been on. And yeah, you mentioned a lot of great stats for Alabama, and they are a very good team. They have a very good
Mm-hmm.
offense, and that's what's kept them in every game. But that's the problem, is every game they win is a close game because they win it with offense and they don't play defense. And UConn is just as good as Alabama on offense. Plus, they have the defensive efficiency to really just suffocate them. So,
Uh,
yeah, this is 11.5 point favorite for UConn for a reason.
Here's the thing: Alabama's going to get. I think they're going to get frustrated. And what we saw two teams that Connecticut played in the last 2 games that they played that are certainly talented teams. I mean, you can't say San Diego State is a talented team, you know. And basically, UConn has been holding their opponents to 30.9% from beyond the arc. And to be honest, UConn hasn't been hitting the threes, that much anyway. But what they've done, and they've done it very, very well, is they are outstanding at moving without the ball and finding, the open man. And whether it's for a 2 or a 3, they seem to be able to space themselves around and do that. So that's a pretty good thing get moving on. So we'll see how that plays out. The the thing is, and I think this is one point. They have a chance to be back to back champions. Now in 2007, um, Billy Donovan in Florida did that, and interestingly enough, Billy said that he thinks that what is going on here, if Connecticut can pull it off, would be far more difficult than what happened when he won back-to-back championships. And it has to do with the fact that he said he got buy-in from Joakim Noah and all of those great guys. And you talked about that earlier this year. That they all came back, and plus he had a class coming in, which was pretty good. That's not the case anymore. You've got all these. You've got portal situations. You've got NIL deals. You've got all kinds of crazy that really can change a roster in a heartbeat. And so for UConn to be able to navigate that terrain and find their way back to the top is pretty amazing. Even finding their way back to the Final Four.
Yeah, it was Sean who mentioned that, and it's a great point to make because, there's two things going on here on why this would be more impressive than the Florida back-to-back win because, it's a different era of basketball. They didn't have, that was back when it was, all right, I'm going to load up my team. I got my guys for this year and I got my guys for the next 4 years with the bench here. You'll get your turn, right? You wait your turn. And that's how it was. But now we have the portal. Now we have NIL deals. There's all these other things. Now it's like either start me or I'm leaving. What are you going to do about it? What can you do for me? So it's a completely different era of basketball. Plus the fact that they didn't return everybody. Three of their starters went to the NBA and they had to thrust guys into those roles. And sure enough, here they are again, not only in the Final Four, but with the best record in the entire country, and they won the regular season of their conference, and they won the conference tournament. How many teams can say that they did that this year?
Not many, but it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun, my friend. And then Monday night, I don't know. I think this is a destined situation of UConn and Purdue.
Yeah, I think if it's not UConn, Purdue, they're going to get bad ratings. People want to see the UConn and Purdue. And like I said, both are 9+ point favorites in these Final Four games. So
there's one other thing. I'm going jumping back, and I don't mean to, but I just wanted to get it in. There's been so much press this week on that Iowa game against UConn, and most of the headlines have been, and this we're playing now back to your point about South Carolina, right? Most of the headlines have been saying the real national championship game, Iowa versus UConn.
Yeah, that's gonna ruffle some feathers.
That's gonna get some people a little, excuse me. You still have to play one more game, okay? Just saying. So, look, there's no question that everybody on the planet that is a fan of basketball wants to see this game. And here's all you need to know about this game, okay? When Iowa played last week, right? In Boston. I'm sorry, in upstate New York, Albany. That's right. They played in Albany. 6 NBA teams sat down after their game they played, and watched the majority of that game. Because they were tweeting out all kinds of, crazy fun stuff about what they were watching and how much they were enjoying it. You got NBA players sitting down watching women's college basketball. I don't know what more you need to get you pumped up about this game tonight.
Yeah, definitely. It's going to be a very exciting game.
They don't watch NBA players don't watch NBA games.
Yeah,
So
but like, come on.
we
It's
don't
the
watch NBA
NBA.
games.
Yeah, like who watches NBA games? Like everybody will tell you college is more exciting, and I don't think it's really matters if it's men or women's college. College in
Right.
general is better than the NBA, so it doesn't
There you go.
surprise me that that they pulled the ratings they did in that game. And like I said, I think they're going to get better ratings in this UConn Iowa game.
Hmm. Well, I'll tell you what. Speaking of all that, I'm sure you have a ton. I mean, this weekend's full of all kinds of outstanding things to wager upon. And my dear friend, Mr. Amadeus, has content in his show box below, and he's going to give you a preview of what's going on in the weekend. Now, remember, you should bookmark these because he gives out content all the time. So this doesn't happen, during the afternoons of the time that we do the show. Amadeus is constantly putting out stuff. You're gonna want to just bookmark it and go back there every day just to check things out. So Amadeus, why don't you give us a preview of what's going on this weekend?
Yeah, absolutely. Make sure you check out my picks at my premium picks at bigowl.com, pickadvisor.com, and theinsidersroom.com. The links are in the description below. And as Jim said, I'm going to have tons of plays up every day throughout the weekend as well. But for tonight, make sure you go check out my action on the pitch. I got one play up for Ligue 1, and I also have I got 3 NBA as well as 2 MLB plays. So lots of action on this Friday tonight. Go check it out.
There you go. All right, look, Amadeus is going to be on assignment for us, okay? Amadeus is our eclipse correspondent on Monday. So he won't be here on Monday. But if you want to know everything that happened during the eclipse, he's right in the path, and so he's going to bring it to us on Tuesday. All right, so we're not going to do a show on Monday, but we'll be back on Tuesday with not only great situations with regard to what happened over the weekend, what's going to happen in the coming week, but you're going to get a very interesting perspective on something that doesn't happen often, and that is a full solar eclipse. So you want to be here with us on this coming Tuesday. All right, we're not going to be here Monday, but Tuesday we're going to be here. So by all means, check it out, and Amadeus, enjoy your eclipse coverage.
Yes, it's going to be great.
Any possibility you might have a pick for that on 80% of it getting through, or anything on eclipse coverage over the weekend? I'll tell you what, we're not gonna tell people. You're just gonna have to go and check things out all weekend long to see if he has something on the eclipse. Okay. All right.
Exactly.
Okay, cool. All right, everybody, have a wonderful weekend. Amadeus and I will see you on Tuesday. All right, take care, everyone. Bye bye.